Good evening, my friends. This is Paul, and today I'm going to be re-reviewing Mario plus Rabbids Kingdom Battle for the Nintendo Switch, now with video footage. And yes, I will be covering the DLC briefly, though I won't be doing any footage of that, because capturing footage enough for this review was something else. Now you might be looking at the first couple of seconds of what I have here and be thinking, oh no, this game is a recipe for disaster. First off, Mario's picking up a gun. And two, you've got the Rabbids. This is gonna be awful. And that's exactly what I thought, too, because I thought the Rabbids wore out their welcome well after their debut in 2006 with Rayman Raving Rabbids. Yeah, who knew that this was a Rayman spin-off of all things? But had I kept that mindset and not been willing to give this a try because I love turn-based RPGs like Fire Emblem, I would have been missing out on one of the best experiences Mario has ever had outside of his main adventures, and in many ways, a lot better. So first off, the gameplay is kinda hard to describe if you haven't actually played it. Hopefully this video footage will help. Just in case it doesn't, I'll try to explain it a little bit. So, you actually don't control Mario directly as your main protagonist. You actually control this creature that's kind of like a computer mouse named Beepo, who guides the characters along on their routes. And also, when you're wandering around in the overworld between battles, you control Beepo almost like you're controlling the mouse cursor in one of those interactive PC adventures. So, yes, it takes a little bit of getting used to, especially when you factor in collecting the coins. But eventually it becomes second nature and is a great way of like breaking the fourth wall, but not when it comes to controlling the characters. So in battle, you select a character with Beepo, then select where you want the character to go, then select an action. Of course, you can mix and match those abilities all that you want. Eventually, you can do up to 3 or 4 actions per turn and arrange it so that you might want to shoot first, then move, activate your special ability, move, then shoot. If you can think of it, you can probably do it. There's also a skill tree to upgrade your characters, because what's a turn-based RPG without upgrades? And I must say that the skill tree may seem a little bit daunting at first, but once you actually get the hang of it, this is also a very easy way to introduce a level up mechanic to a Mario game. So basically, your characters get orbs the more that they proceed through the game. You can get orbs by doing challenges provided by the Rabbids when you revisit certain worlds. And you can also get them for other things, such as successfully getting perfect ratings on missions, etc. Thankfully, the game, if you don't get perfect on your first go, the game lets you replay chapters with your better weapons and equipment. So if you fail the first time, you still have a chance to get a full perfect reward for it later, and it'll have less challenge. Getting back to the skill tree. So when you get those orbs, you can spend them on upgrading your character in a very non-linear fashion. Do you want to focus on your character having extra health but not as much firepower? Go for it. Do you want to get more coins when you land a golden shot, or do you care less about coins and just want to plow through with your current equipment? You can do that too. Of course, there are ideal ways of playing this game, but the game never forces you to stick to what you've upgraded. In previous strategy games, sometimes it can be irksome when your character upgrades in a way that you didn't intend for them to do. Mario plus Rabbids, on the other hand, is just not like that. They say, okay, well, if you don't like the skills that you've assigned and you don't find them working, just reset the skill tree. Yeah, that's right. You can just completely reset your character back to 0 and then completely redo the skill tree all over again. The only limitation is you can't give them something that you haven't already purchased with the orbs. But other than that, you can say, maybe I don't like this skill. Maybe I'll switch it out with something else instead. And that is absolutely brilliant. Granted, I only tried this once and probably would have beaten this game in about half that time had I did it. But it really helped a lot when I played the DK Adventure, because different maps called for different levels of strategy. And I was glad to be given that chance to experiment and not be forced to stick with what the game provided me, but allowing me to progress the game's difficulty at my own pace. Now, this game can get pretty hard. Like any strategy RPG, you need to do a fair amount of thinking. What's kind of unfortunate about this game is that while, yes, you can take as much time as you want to plan out your move, and you have options of determining the enemy's range, their special abilities, there is one strange omission that this game has, and that's once you have moved your character, you can't take it back, which is one thing that the Fire Emblem games were really good at, but this isn't. Say you accidentally move Rabid Peach to one square to the right of what you had intended. Well, too bad. That's where you're moving once you've set the cursor. So try to be the type of person that plays this game slow and steady and don't rush through battles just because you think, I've seen it all. I've played XCOM, which apparently this game is heavily inspired by. No, you really have to plan ahead because the enemies have amazing AI and they're not going to pull any punches. They're not going to say, well, this is the first level, so we'll go easy on you. They're going to treat you like hard-hitting computer opponents from the get-go. Now you can offset this a little bit with helper items and modes. There's an assist mode or an easy mode, whatever you want to call it, where you can, before a battle, refill your character's health. Why that isn't a standard option, I don't know. I think that's kind of dumb. And it also gives you 50% more health than you already have, in case the enemies are whittling away at you too quickly. There's also the DLC pack, which one might argue, well, Paul, you have to spend money to get better. Well, you can buy the expansion pass, which not only gives you access to pixelated and steampunk weapons pretty early on, which makes some of the earlier battles a lot easier than the developers intended, but it also gives you the full-on Donkey Kong adventure, which is almost as if the developers decided to remake the game from the ground up, but call it Donkey Kong Adventure plus Rabbids, because it feels so radically different. Donkey Kong's and Cranky Kong's movesets are very unique and force you to adapt to the strategies differently than you normally would. Now, there are a lot of puzzles scattered throughout the overworld to prevent the game from being just battle after battle after battle. Most of these puzzles are rather simple to figure out. You usually just push things out of the way, move in a certain way, grab things before the time runs out, and yes, those red coin challenges from the new Super Mario Bros. Games also come back. Though unlike those games, you can retry one of those challenges as many times as you want if you keep failing. The overworld puzzles that were mandatory never really felt too much of a chore because they were usually over pretty quickly. Although I will say that Donkey Kong Adventure has way too many block moving puzzles, and those got really annoying. But thankfully the main game doesn't outstay its welcome. And the rewards are usually great. The game rewards you heavily for going out of your way to find treasure chests and blue cannons that warp you into these retro-filled rooms where you have to collect all the blue coins in time. You can get more powerful weapons, and you can also unlock items for your museum, which contains the music from this game. Yeah, baby! An in-game soundtrack for a Mario game. How many other games besides Super Mario Odyssey and the Mario spin-offs have done that? Along with artwork, concept art, and tarot cards, which you may be thinking, Paul, you're a Catholic. How dare you endorse that? They're actually not really tarot cards at all. They're more of just illustrations of the Rabbids being stupid. So unless you know how to read a Rabbid, you're not actually getting your fortune told. So going out of the way to collect the collectibles is definitely one of the key ways in which this game provides replayability. But it's not cheap replayability. Instead, it allows you to re-explore familiar locations with new abilities. And one of the incredible ways that they do that is that Beepo also upgrades along with the heroes. He'll get new actions that he can use in the overworld, such as being able to push blocks, being able to dig, etc. And these allow you to go back to the world's Metroid style and dig up new secrets that you couldn't have done on your first playthrough. This game is relatively short. It only has 4 worlds, and most of the worlds go by pretty quickly if you are an expert at the game. It can seem artificially long, but thankfully the worlds are never overly confusing where you'll get lost or forget where you need to go, because more often than not, you basically just have to follow wherever the coins are, and they'll take you straight to your destination. Now you can upgrade your weapons as well as the skill tree, although the skill tree definitely helps with making your weapons easier to fill out. Certain weapons give you certain types of damage against other enemies, may give status effects such as poison or being pushed aside. And overall, that's another great bit of customization that the game allows you without making it seem overwhelming. The statistics are also worth mentioning, as most games have a lot of heavy-handed statistics that are really, really difficult to wrap your mind around. And thankfully, Mario Plus Rabbids just says, we're just going to give you, you can't hit the enemy, you might be able to hit the enemy, or you're definitely going to hit the enemy. 0%, 50%, and 100% if you really need me to be precise. And I think that's great, because for someone who's not exactly a math expert like yours truly, that really helps for me to say, okay, so I get either no, maybe, or yes. Although it is worth sometimes attacking enemies even if you have a 0% chance, because you can whittle away at covers that the enemies might hide behind. And that adds an extra incentive is, do I want to chip away at the enemy's cover or do I want to find an alternate way? The fact that this game is full of possibilities alone should make this worth the buy. But for now, let's talk a little bit about the production values. Mario plus Rabbids Kingdom Battle may look slightly out of place when you compare it to, say, Super Mario Odyssey, but you have to commend Ubisoft. For this game not being published or developed by Nintendo, this is an extremely good-looking Mario game. Most people, when they try to make Mario games without Nintendo's consent, they either look like ROM hacks or they look like, say, the CDI Mario games. But this actually looks like it could have come from, say, the GameCube or Wii era with HD. And in fact, the Ubisoft team wasn't even given proper models of the Mario characters when they started development. And I think it's great that they were able to adhere to that GameCube-y kind of half cartoonish, half claymation style so wonderfully. Also, when I was doing this recording, this was the first time I had done this game on the TV instead of in handheld mode. And it really helped me appreciate the spectacular lighting this game has to offer. Man, I just could not stop goggling at some of the later stages that I played because I was like, whoa, dang, the sunset and the shadows are all so magnificent. Even better are the soundtrack and the sound effects. While the sound effects mostly are ripped from Super Mario Brothers games, the soundtrack was composed by none other than the legendary Grant Kirkhope of Banjo-Kazooie and Donkey Kong 64 fame. In fact, he even recomposed his own Donkey Kong Island theme when you're in the overworld of the Donkey Kong Adventure. Of course, if you've played any of the games that he's composed, you're probably going to be like, yeah, this is like totally his style. And that's not a bad thing at all. Most of the music is very whimsical and floaty and really fits the don't take this game too seriously. It's not a super gory shooter like other games of its genre. It's really just lighthearted fun with Mario and a bunch of maniacal, crazy rabbids. There are some epic orchestra pieces too, and even some vocal tracks, although I don't really want to spoil them, but suffice to say that they may come across as this shouldn't be in a Mario game, but it works. Especially when you get to World 3's boss. There's just some spectacular usage of music there that, oh my gosh, gives me goosebumps just thinking about it. So yeah, if you're hesitant about picking up this game because the Rabbids are in it, or because you're daunted by strategy games and you think, oh, Paul, that's just not my genre, well, I would at least encourage you to try picking this game up for its music. And not just Google the soundtrack on YouTube. I'm talking pick this game up and experience the music in context. Because I had a friend of mine that was listening to one of the songs in this game, and he thought, well, I like it, but I like the original version of it better. And I said, well, you do realize that this is in the middle of a battle, right? And he's like, oh, so that's why the bass drums were so powerful. And I was like, yeah, sometimes context can mean everything. So while the soundtrack is definitely great to listen to on its own, and I've probably spent countless hours sharing this with my mom and my friends saying, oh my gosh, Grant Kirkhope is a musical genius. Just listen to this. Listen to the final battle theme and the amazing... I don't want to say any more, but yeah, if there's one thing that cannot be praised enough, it's that the soundtrack is just absolutely oozing with charm, personality, and atmosphere, and is definitely not one to be missed. The game also controls beautifully. It doesn't use any convoluted motion controls. It basically sticks to the Fire Emblem Radiant Dawn approach, which is just take the Joy-Con or Pro Controller in your hands and play it like you would a standard tactical RPG. No motion controls, No crazy usage of HD Rumble to do something magical. This is a Ubisoft game through and through, and so it's going to provide tight gameplay and good humor over gimmicks, which is great because Nintendo's games have been riddled with gimmicks, and it's great to find a game that just says this is a strategy turn-based shooter and nothing more. Well, okay, there is some insanely hilarious writing, but I don't want to spoil most of it for you. Suffice to say that Beepo makes for a very interesting alternative to the usual assortment of dry, forgettable Mario partners. Beepo, you're certainly not going to forget in a hurry because he actually makes snarky comments, kind of like Phoenix Wright does, where he's like, okay, am I the only sane person in a world full of idiots? Type of humor, which sounds harsh when I say it, but believe me, if you're a fan of any form of semi-satirical humor, you are going to find Beepo one of the most endearing, whatever the word is, companions Mario has ever had. So is there anything that I can say against this game? Not really much, although there was one major glitch I encountered that I'd like to warn you guys about, and that was when I tried doing the co-op campaign. Now I figured, okay, if the co-op campaign encourages me to detach the Joy-Cons, then I can just be one player with the blue Joy-Con and another player with the red Joy-Con. Unfortunately, that did not work as the game advertised. What the game wants you to do is it wants you to separate your Joy-Cons and a friend's. So you can't just play co-op with yourself. And as a result, I actually had to force quit the game to turn off. Now maybe it's been fixed with subsequent patches, I don't know, but when I first played it, it was pretty awful. And I felt kind of bad because in the season pass, there were DLC co-op campaigns, and I was like, I don't want to miss out on stuff that I paid for, but from what I've been told, they're mostly just alternate versions of battles that are already existing in the main game. So apparently I wasn't missing very much. Now, seeing as this is the third time I've reviewed it, if you count the second time as me exclusively revealing the Donkey Kong DLC, you'll know that I have very high praise for this, and if I ever make my top 10 best games I've reviewed list again, this will most certainly make the list. With that, please pick it up. Possibly on sale. I mean, Disc Replay, if you live in the States, offers this game for a pretty darn cheap price if you're not good at the genre. But if you do love turn-based strategy games, then you're going to want to pick it up full price no matter what. This game is an absolute masterpiece. With that, hope I haven't gone on too long. If there are any questions, please let me know in the comments section. And until the next time, keep the faith, stay epic, God bless, and don't let your maniacal rabbit near a washing machine. That just causes all sorts of bad news. Bye.